Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today we will take another shloka from the second chapter of Bhagavad-gita, and this is the 44th shloka, where Krishna describes what are the obstacles in our determination. In the previous shlokas, Krishna spoke that we have to be very determined in our practice of yoga. So yoga practice should be done with vyavasayatmika buddhi, one-pointed focus, resolute determination. So now, what are the obstacles that block our determination? That Krishna speaks in this shloka. So first we can have Parikshit. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam tayapahirta chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhihi samadhau na vidhiyate. Parikshit Prabhu, you can recite first line 4 times.
Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam.
Very good. Vrinda and Harshita, second line. Taya apahirta chetasam.
Taya prahita chetasam. Taya prahita chetasam. Taya prahita chetasam. Taya prahita chetasam. Taya prahita chetasam.
Nilima Bhosle Mataji, third line. Vyavasayatmika buddhihim. Okay, Lokesh Prabhu, you can do that. Vyavasayatmika buddhihim.
Vyavasayatmika buddhir.
4 times.
Vyavasayatmika buddhir. Vyavasayatmika buddhir. Vyavasayatmika buddhir.
Okay. Sabarish Iyer Prabhu, 4th line. Samadhau na vidhiyate.
Samadhau na vidhiyate. Samadhau na vidhiyate. Samadhau na vidhiyate. Samadhau na vidhiyate.
Okay. Next, Karthik and Kamakshi, 2 lines together. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam tayapahirta chetasam.
Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya pahrita chetasam. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya pahrita chetasam. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya pahrita chetasam. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya pahrita chetasam. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Yashoda and Kirtida, next 2 lines. Vyavasayatmika buddhihi samadhau na vidhiyate.
Vyavasayatmika buddhi samadho na vidhiyate. Vyavasayatmika buddhi samadho na vidhiyate. Vyavasayatmika buddhi samadho na vidhiyate.
Very good. Jahnavi, full shloka. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam.
Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam.
Okay, Jahnavi, you recite the full shloka. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam.
Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya paharita chetasam. Vyavasayatmika buddhi samadhau na vidhiyate.
Very good. Svetavaraha Prabhu, full shloka.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya parita chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhihi samadho na vidhiyate.
Okay, thank you. Then Dharana Mahesh Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranams. Bhogai Aishwarya Prasattanam Taya Paharta Chetasam Vyavasatmika Buddhihi Samadhauna Vidhiyate. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranams.
Neelam Bajpai Prabhu.
Prabhuji. Bhogeshwarya prasaktanam taya paryata chetasa vyavasayatmika buddhir samadhana vidhiyate. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sri Ram.
Yes, Prabhuji. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam tyaparahita chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhi samadhavana vidhiyate.
Excellent. Then T.R. Krishnan Prabhu. Okay, Dr. Bharti Mataji. Bhogaishwar
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya prakrudasedasam vivasayatmiha buddhihi samadhavna vidiyade.
Okay, then Richa, soft skills. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam
भोगेश्वर्य प्रसक्तानां तया प्रहता चेतसनं
chetasam
चेतसां व्यवसायमित्तका बुद्धि समाधाउना विद्यते. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you. So we will discuss the meaning now. Bhoga Aishwarya Prasaktanam Taya Apahrita Chetasam. Bhoga means enjoyment. Aishwarya means wealth or opulence. Prasaktanam. Saktana means being so involved with or attached to. Prasaktana means being completely absorbed in that. So Bhogaishwarya Prasaktana means for those people who are too much attached to enjoyment and opulence, wealth. Right? I want so much of enjoyment on a material plane, and I want so much of material riches. So when our minds are completely absorbed in such consciousness, and taya apahrita chetasam, when our chetasa, consciousness or mind, is stolen by such desires, such attachments. So taya means, taya refers to bhoga and aishwarya. Apahrita chetasam, apahrita means abducting, kidnapping or stealing, right? Chetasa means consciousness or mind. So when our consciousness or minds are stolen by our attachments to bhoga and aishwarya, enjoyment and opulence, what happens? Vyavasayatmika buddhi samadho na vidhiyate. Vyavasayatmika buddhi means intelligence which is one-pointed and determined. Vyavasayatmika means you are focused on cultivating that. You are focused on developing it. That one-pointed focus or determined intelligence in bhakti cannot take place. Samadho. Samadhi, trance or full absorption. Okay, or fixed mind. Na vidhiyate, it doesn't take place. So the meaning of the shloka is, when we are too much attached to enjoyment and opulence, and when our consciousness is completely stolen by that attachment to opulence and enjoyment, then we cannot have one-pointed determination or focus or fixed mind in our practice of yoga or bhakti yoga. And it is very much true in our material goals also. So, for example, a student is preparing for an exam, and if the focus is on the exam and preparation, then definitely he will attain success. But if the student's mind is distracted by enjoyment, let me enjoy by playing. Okay, if the student is greedy to enjoy something else, then one will not be able to focus on his goals. So the obstacles for our determination are attachments to enjoyment and opulence. That blocks our determination, especially on the path of yoga, on the path of spiritual life. So in the previous shlokas, Krishna introduced the path of yoga, and he said that vyavasayatmika buddhi, or one-pointed intelligence, is required to perform that yoga, to advance in spiritual life. So that's the context of this shloka. So now Krishna is speaking that there are obstacles for such advancement. There are obstacles for such one-pointed determination, one-pointed focus, or vyavasayatmika buddhi, and that is attachment to bhoga. Bhoga means bhoga and aishwarya. Bhoga means enjoyment. Aishwarya means opulence. Right? When we are too much attached to these two things, enjoyment and opulence, material enjoyment, I want to enjoy in a material plane, and I want a lot of wealth and riches. So that will steal our consciousness. Those attachments will steal our consciousness. Apaharta chetasam. Chetasa is consciousness or even mind. They are used interchangeably in this shloka. So apaharta chetasam. Apaharta means stealing, kidnapping, abducting. So attachments abduct our consciousness. Attachment to enjoyment and opulence. Yes, we can enjoy to some degree, but not prasaktanam. Prasaktanam means completely immersed in desire for that enjoyment. Okay, material enjoyment. So let's go more deep into this. So now a thief comes to our house, and what does the thief do? He may steal our property. But a distracted mind is more dangerous than a thief, because distracted mind will not just steal our property, it will steal our identity also. What is our original identity? Jivera Swarupahai Krishnera Nityadas. So being eternal servants of Krishna is our real identity, original identity. So in our original constitutional position, we are all servants of Krishna, lovers of Krishna, fragmental parts of Krishna, amshas of Krishna. Krishna says, what does Krishna say? Mama evamsho jiva loke jiva bhutas sanatanaha. All of you are my amshas. So as amshas of Krishna, we are supposed to be enjoying on a spiritual plane. But on a material plane, if we desire material enjoyment, then our identity is stolen. Our identity is lost. It's never lost as such, but it goes in the background. The material temporary identities come in the foreground and the real spiritual identities go in the background, right? So we should not entertain this distracted mind. The distracted mind can steal, abduct our identity, not just property, more dangerous. And the mind is a storehouse of unlimited desires and attachments. So we think and we act according to our desires, isn't it? So our thinking is according to how do I fulfill my desires? And our actions are also to fulfill those desires. So desires set our vision and action. So we form a vision to achieve some goals, or we perform an action according to our desires. But if the desires are centered on material enjoyment and getting material wealth, then we set material goals, we do material actions, right? We have material vision. But if we invite within our mind, if we invite Krishna there, then our actions and visions are spiritual. So we need to spiritualize the mind. So I'll give a few more examples of the distracted mind, or the mind that has so many desires for enjoyment and opulence. So we discussed the desire for enjoyment and opulence abducts our consciousness. How is it? Now there is a big lake here. The lake has nice crystal clear pure waters. But if some grasses grow on the shore of that lake, what do the grasses do? Grasses suck away all the good water. The water is meant for drinking by so many people in that locality. The water is meant for so many wonderful purposes. But when unnecessary grasses grow on the shore of that lake, the grasses suck away all the water, isn't it? So then the water is gone. So the water, instead of using the water for some good purposes, the water is unnecessarily feeding the growth of unnecessary grasses, right? So, or sometimes poisonous bushes also. So similarly, our consciousness is meant for the enjoyment of Krishna, for the service of Krishna. But if we allow desires for enjoyment and opulence to abduct our consciousness, it's like growing unnecessary grasses. You want to use this water to grow paddy, food grains, vegetables, or unnecessary grasses, which are of not much use. Of course, some grasses are useful for cows. To that degree, we allow. But point is, if we allow our mind to get too distracted, then the valuable human energy and time and resources are being utilized for material purposes, and the valuable time is not being utilized for what is more important for us, right? So another example, on a rice field, so many weeds also grow along with rice plants, along with paddy, weeds also grow. So you may put water to that field, we may give fertilizers to that field. That is not sufficient. We should also ensure that all the water and fertilizers that I'm providing to this field should go to the rice crops, should go to that vegetable crop, not to the weeds. Weeds are unnecessary, right? They take away the focus. Similarly, if we entertain these material desires, unreasonable material desires for enjoyment and opulence, if we entertain them too much, they steal our focus on our real goals, which is spiritual goal, ultimately, right? So we need to cultivate that concentration of mind. So attachments to wealth and enjoyment make us blind, make us physically blind, intellectually blind, and spiritually blind, ultimately. So We may not be physically blind, but our actions with all good senses could make us act as if we are a blind person. In front of you only you are able to see, but you are unable to act in a proper manner, right? So now we maintain, and when we maintain undue desires, we voluntarily blindfold ourselves because the desires weaken us. I'll give you an example to understand this, how attachments make us blind. Dhritarashtra is physically blind, but at least he had intelligence. He need not be intellectually blind. He need not be spiritually blind. But because of his unreasonable attachment to his bad son, demoniac son Duryodhan, he became spiritually blind also, intellectually blind also. So unreasonable attachments make us blind to our own benefit. So once Vidura came to Dhritarashtra and said, Sayesha dosha purusha dviraste grahan pravishtoyam apatyamatya. My dear Dhritarashtra, because of your Duryodhan, your son, you are losing the fame of your dynasty. Because this Duryodhan hates Pandavas. He hates Krishna. So when a person hates God and his devotees, how degraded such a person is, and you are getting attached to that person, thinking that he is your dearest son. There are 4 kinds of sons. Okay, one is Runanubandhi Putra. Runanubandhi Putra means in the previous life, if you are supposed to pay some money to some vendor and we have died without paying that, and that person could become son to do paisa vasool, to take money from us. That is Runanubandhi Putra. Second category is Shatru Putra. Shatru Putra means an enemy may want to take revenge on a person and he may take birth as the son of the father. So that is Shatru Putra. And third is Udasina Putra, means neutral. Neutral is like he's indifferent to the parents, right? He doesn't do anything to the parents. He's indifferent. He doesn't cause any harm. He doesn't do any benefit also. That is Udasina Putra. Fourth is Sevaka Putra. He renders service to the parents, not only on a material plane, on a spiritual plane also. When a son becomes a devotee, the practice of devotional service done by the son will also benefit the parents. That is Sevaka Putra. Now, this, I don't know which category this Duryodhan belongs to, but this Dhritarashtra, out of his undue attachment to this demoniac son Duryodhan, he became blind to dharma, right? He is physically blind and he also became intellectually blind and spiritually blind. So, because too much of attachment to Duryodhan, Duryodhan comes and says, I will burn Pandavas in a house made of lac. Dhritarashtra says, fine, do it. Duryodhan says, I will cheat these people in a gambling match. Okay. Dhritarashtra supports, endorses. And Duryodhan says, okay, we'll bring Draupadi in this big assembly and disrobe her. And Dhritarashtra, instead of stopping Duryodhan, he is supporting Duryodhan, favoring Duryodhan, right? See, because of attachment to the son. He knows, like insulting a woman like this in public is adharma. Stealing the property of his own nephews is adharma. He knows he's consciously not following what is right, consciously following what is wrong because of his attachment to his son, Duryodhan. So when we have too many attachments, material attachments, undue attachments, that attachment will destroy our discrimination. That dampens our determination. And that attachments will make us indifferent to all good advice. Okay. Many well-wishers came and advised Dhritarashtra. Vidura said, not only Vidura, Bhishma advised Dhritarashtra, Drona advised Dhritarashtra, Sanjaya advised, Akrura advised, Gandhar, his own wife said, even Vyasadeva, the literary incarnation of the Lord, he said, Narada Muni said. When so many exalted personalities, well-wishers are giving this advice to Dhritarashtra, he is unable to follow that advice. You know, when Akrura came to Dhritarashtra and said, please give up your attachment to your demoniac son Duryodhan. Please treat your nephews Pandavas also properly. You know what Dhritarashtra said? My dear Akrura, your advices are wonderful. They are like lightning. But my heart is like cloud. How long lightning will stay in the cloud? For 1 second or fraction of a second, right? Similarly, I can appreciate your good advice, but I cannot follow your good advice. I cannot act on that plane. So consciously, he was acting in a wrong manner. Consciously, he was performing adharma. Why? Because of his attachment and the attachment to his son. Similarly, when we also become attached to enjoyment, bhoga, and wealth, aishwarya. So, bhoga, aishwarya prasaktanam, when we are too much attached to material wealth and material enjoyment, we may lose our common sense, we may lose our discrimination, right? We should understand what is beneficial for us, right? We may even give up, we may even become indifferent to good advice also. So, these attachments, material attachments for wealth and enjoyment are like ropes that bind us, okay? So, now ropes, if some ropes bind us, we may not be able to move, fine. But here, whenever we have an attachment, a physical rope may not bind us, but an invisible rope keeps binding us, fine. You know the story of Dhruva Maharaj? So Dhruva's mother is Suniti, and Suniti had a co-wife, that is Suruchi, and she had a son, Uttama. So Dhruva's father is Uttanapada. So Uttanapada, King Uttanapada, had two wives, Suruchi and Suniti. Suniti's son is Dhruva, Suruchi's son is Uttama, right? Because of Uttanapada's undue attachment to this Suruchi, he neglected Suniti. And when little Dhruva, 5-year-old boy, came to sit on the lap of Uttanapada, he did not welcome him. Why? Because he's so attached to his wife. The enjoyment that he gets from his wife is more important for him, and his responsibility as a father he completely ignored, right? Because of attachment, we lose common sense. Consciously, we do the wrong things, okay? So we need to understand, are these attachments holding on to me, or am I holding on to the attachments? So ropes may bind us and we cannot move, but we consciously bind ourselves with the ropes. We consciously blindfold ourselves by maintaining attachments. We hold on to attachments, not that attachments come and hold on to us, right? So we hold on to attachments oftentimes. So by hearing Bhagavad-gita, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from bona fide sources of knowledge, we'll spiritualize our intelligence. When we spiritualize our intelligence, then we can control our mind, we can regulate our attachments. We need not become victims of those bhoga and aishwarya prasaktana. So, and company of devotees will also inspire us and will enthuse us to apply the teachings that we have learned. And if we invite Krishna into our minds, then nobody can steal our minds. Okay, let Krishna steal the minds. Krishna is also a big chore, big stealer, big thief. So he's called Hari because he does haran. He steals everything. So let Krishna come and steal our minds. When Krishna steals butter in Vrindavan, it's not that he's stealing butter. He's stealing the pure hearts. The butter, the soft, white, pure butter in the houses of the gopis represents their pure consciousness. Let our Chetana be stolen by Krishna, but not attachments. Yavasayatmika buddhi bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya apahata chetasam. A conditioned soul's chetasa is abducted by attachments, by bhoga and aishwarya. But a liberated soul, a pure devotee's mind or consciousness is stolen by Krishna, thoughts of Krishna. So let Krishna come and steal. All the gopis of Vrindavan are so attached to Krishna, not attached to bhoga and aishwarya. Okay, they are not attached to wealth. So desire for unreasonable enjoyment and greed for unlimited wealth will destroy our determination in devotional service, will make us lose our discrimination, will dampen our enthusiasm in pursuing our real goals, and we unnecessarily get trapped in this world. So these are a few thoughts on this shloka. So shall we recite the shloka again? Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya apahrita chetasam. So I will go to the shloka again. Who will recite now? Parvati Raman Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya apahrita chetasam vyavasatmika buddhihi samadau na vidiyate.
Okay, thank you. Next, Lokesh, you can recite.
Yes, Prabhuji. भोगैश्वर्यप्रसक्तानां ताया प्रवृत्तचेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिसमाधान विधीयते
भोगैश्वर्यप्रसक्तानां तया पकर्ते चेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धि समाधौ न विद्यते. हरे कृष्ण प्रभु.
Krishikeshan.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी.
Yes.
भोगैश्वर्य प्रसक्तानां तया प्रहृत चेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धि समाधौ न विधीयते.
Very
हरे
good.
कृष्ण प्रभु जी.
Gayatri Mataji.
हरे कृष्ण. भोगैश्वर्य प्रसक्तानां तया प्रहृत चेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धि समाधौ न विधीयते. हरे कृष्ण. थैंक यू.
Smita Joshi Mataji.
हरे कृष्ण. दंडवत प्रणाम. भोगेश्वर प्रसक्तानां तया अपहृता चेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धि समाधौ न विधीयते. हरे कृष्ण.
Madhulata Mataji.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी. दंडवत प्रणाम. भोगैश्वर्य प्रसक्तानां तया अपहृत चेतसां व्यवसाय